that's another thing you can't weigh because the forefront stuff is just it's not the glamour, but it's just kind of like the stuff that you get applauded for a lot. The behind the scenes stuff, just because a lot of people aren't applauding for it, it doesn't mean that it's not just as good.
You are now listening to the Music Business Dreams podcast, brought to you by KDMR Music.
Hey guys, welcome to episode 17 of the Music Business Dreams podcast. I'm your host, Brandon from KDMR Music. You just heard from our guest, Pat Jr. He's a music producer, sound designer, and also a hip-hop artist. But I'll let you guys hear more from him later. Before we get into today's episode, I know you guys are like, what is going on with this runtime? Why did they talk so much? So I'll keep this intro short, but I want to say thank you to everyone who tuned in the last 2 weeks for our first ever solo episodes. Wasn't sure how those were going to go over, but I got great feedback, and I'm going to, bring some more of those for you guys in the weeks to come. We'll see. Maybe there'll be special occasions. But again, I'm not going to talk too long. I just hope that you guys, if you have not already, go ahead and subscribe to the podcast. Follow us on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, wherever, all social media at KDMR Music. And please join the Indie Club. That is our private community where I'll answer all sorts of questions. We network, get support from each other, and it's just a great place to hang out. So, kdmr.us/indie club. It is free, but we're going to ask you some questions just to make sure you're serious before you join. But I'd love to have you. I'd love to see you there. And without further ado, let's introduce today's guest. All right, guys. So our next guest on the Music Business Dreams podcast is a music artist, a writer and producer, as well as a sound designer. His goal is to be absolute in every area of his life and not just his music. This is someone I've gotten the pleasure of getting to meet a couple of times over the last few years. So welcome to the Music Business Dreams podcast, Pat Jr.
Yo, what's going on, man?
Not much, man. How are you?
I'm doing pretty good. Life's been good, man. Just working hard, staying focused. Actually, yesterday, me and my wife went to the NC State Fair, so that was fun.
Word.
Got to eat kind of like whatever I wanted for first time in a long time. So yeah, it was cool.
Yeah, my wife and I, our first date, I guess this was 7 years ago now, was to the state fair. And I think we've been back like once since then. I mean, just doing the fair with like a child is so cold and all that. But
Nah. We try to go, every other year, every other 2 years, or however you want to say it. You know what I mean? But yeah, it's cool, man.
Cool. Well, thanks for being on the show. It's always a pleasure to talk to you. I'm just excited about this conversation. So for those who don't know you, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself or tell us a little bit more about you?
Yeah, well, I am, of course, a music artist. I would say I'm a little bit more of a hybrid when it comes to, the style of music I do, but most will classify me as a hip hop artist because that is the foundation of what I do. But when people ask me, I'm a music artist because, my sound isn't just strictly, hip hop, you know what I'm saying? So, yeah, of course I'm into music. I produce as well. I produced a few records of people from the NC area, and a few people out of the NC area. And when I say produce, like I'm just not making the beats, I'm giving guidance in, the direction of the record and doing some little bit of writing for some, in some cases or whatever. So I'm actually producing because I really believe there's a difference between a producer and a beat maker. So,
Right.
Yeah. And then, I also have had success this year in doing sound design. So I would say, I wouldn't say 100% by trade, but definitely by way of producing or beat making. I am a sound designer, and that wasn't. I would say that was like more so of a semi-accidental thing or like a experimental thing. Like, hey, let's try this out, and then it just kind of worked. So, so yeah, so music artist, producer, and sound designer.
Okay, cool. That's what's up, man. So I want to talk a little bit about your creative approach. You know, for me looking from the outside, I know you draw inspiration from things that are like aesthetic, and then as well as like the seasons and things. But could you explain to the listeners what your creative approach is?
Well, yeah, like just as far as like just music in general, like
Yeah.
my personal. Okay, well, yeah, I mean, for me, man, like as far as my songwriting process, a lot of it just comes from life, man. I draw a lot of concepts from life. I am very much so, excuse me, I'm very much so a concept driven person when it comes to my music. So like, sometimes I'll just write anything and wherever it goes, I'll go with it. But it's very rarely I do that. I'm very concept driven, man. So like I'm always like writing, even if it's not um any, music, I'm writing or whatever, just to kind of, what I'm saying, just see what's on my mind or just kind of just fooling around. And I just kind of draw concepts from there. Just a lot of the times when I'm reflecting on life, I end up finding just stuff to write about creatively, or giving it, that kind of creative twist. And a lot of my experiences, I try not to pull so far back from the past, but a lot of my experiences are very fresh. So they didn't happen years ago. It's just like stuff that's recently happened to me, or sometimes it's even like literally like a few weeks before. And I just want to, capture where I am with that, and I get, other inspiration, not just from life, but and I draw from movies. Like I'm a huge movie guy, just film in general, because I watch a lot of stuff on Netflix, and I'm watching stuff in the theater or whatever. I don't get a lot of time to go to the theater as much as I'd like to, but um, when I go to see the movies that count, you know what I'm saying?
You're right.
So yeah, man. I just my creative process is always on the move. You know what I'm saying? Like I'm always pulling inspiration, and I'm always creating as much as I can. Sometimes there are times where I just kind of, I have to just kind of live life for a while and don't touch anything for a few days, but then it's kind of right back to it. So I'm pulling from life, from film. Like you said, I'm pulling from different aesthetics, and whether that just be, uh, pictures or like nature or whatever. Like I'm pulling from everywhere. And definitely, man, number one, God is the inspiration, of course. You know what I'm saying? Um, so yeah, man, like my creative process, I guess in a nutshell, would just be like always moving, always evolving, always just kind of seeing what works, what doesn't work, and it's also strategic as well. So yeah, man.
Got you. That's what's up, man. So when we talked a little while ago, you told me the story of how you became a full-time artist. And it wasn't like the glamorous story that people hope for, or like, that you might hear about. And so I wanted you to tell that story for our listeners today.
Okay, yeah, it's definitely not it's definitely not the glamorous story. But nah, man, it's not what everybody like the typical, yeah, I'm a creative and I've been working for X amount of years in the regular 9 to 5 work world, and I saved up all this money and I paid off all this debt, and then I just quit my job and started doing this full time. It's definitely not that. So as of kind of like interesting fact, if you will. It's crazy, like we're having this conversation now, but as of like this month, since 2016, I've been doing this full time artistry thing for 2 years now. Um, and because this is around the time where me and my wife actually made the decision 2 years ago to do this thing full time, or for me to do it full time. So yeah, so like 2 years ago, man, I was working this job, and everything was going good. Like, I had been working there for like a year and some change. Um, all of the, from what I knew, from unless they kept something from me, like all of the managers there, supervisors there, they knew me, they loved me, they knew I was an artist. You know what I'm saying? I was working almost full time, like maybe 30 hours or so, 31 hours, 32 hours. But they knew I was an artist. Uh, and they appreciated, well, they highly respected and loved my work ethic there. And I was doing customer service. I won't say like where I was working. Like, I'm not embarrassed of it, but I just don't want to like throw nobody under the bus or anything.
Right.
But yeah, I was doing customer service, and one of the things that the managers loved about me, just to kind of like show that it was nothing I did, because they made it very clear to me, because just to show like how everything was going so well. They like, one of the things they loved about me is like I hardly ever passed up any customers to my managers. Like, I handled the stuff on the phone and never really went above my head, hardly did. And they like, that was the talk. I didn't ask anybody, but like I kind of heard it around the way, like, yo, dude, they love you because X, Y, and Z. So I was like, okay, that's dope. So, but anyway, so yeah, I've been there for like a year and some change, and like just one day, like they pulled me into the office and they was just like, Pat, you are a phenomenal worker. We love your work ethic. We respect you, blah, 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 this and the third. It was just like, we don't have enough money to pay everybody who's here, and so we're going to have to let you go. It's nothing that you did. It's just kind of been like random like selections we've been doing, and we've been doing it that way because like, it's been really hard for us. We don't really have too many cases where, we could just, like tardiness or other stuff like that, like for other people. So we had to randomly pick whatever. And I was bummed out, man, because, I was getting steady pay. I was still doing my shows. I was still doing I was doing videography at the time, and that was going well. So I was getting paid like twice, you know what I'm saying? Like for my own stuff consistently as an artist. And then I was getting paid from this job. And like, this was the fourth time I had been laid off since I had been married. I think, no, yeah, it was 6 years being married. That was the fourth time I got laid off. And you would think by then in my mind, by the fourth time or by the third time, I would be like, okay, I need to do something else. Or when I say do something else, maybe like I don't need to work a 9-to-5 job, but I still wasn't getting it, even though the signs were being thrown at me. Right. But, I just, like, man, I told my wife, and, she was bummed out. I was pretty upset. So going back to my creative process, like, a lot of, I guess, energy or fuel for my first Black and Mild EP project, like a lot of that creative fuel came from that experience. You know what I'm saying? I even kind of talk about just one night, like during that week after I got laid off, of just like being really upset, man. It was like super late. It was like 1 or 2 in the morning, man. I just was upset. I was I cried, man. Like I was upset, like I was hurt, like I was confused. I was a lot of things that weren't good. And just because of that experience, and it was just kind of like, man, like I'm doing well, everything's going good, and then I get laid off. I'm doing well, everything's going good, and then I get laid off. And so, yeah, man, it was rough, but I think I started off just kind of going on the leads that I had. At the time, I was producing some full projects and getting paid for that, like full album EP projects, for other artists. So I just I went with that. I was also doing some videography stuff, and I continued to go with that. And and then one of my homies, man, my dude Jay Rogers, and that's my guy. I love him. He's an artist too. He's a creative too. And he was like, "Yo, man, like I'm doing this full time too." He was like, "But a great way to supplement your income is to do Lyft and Uber." So I was like, word. So I hopped on it, and I remember 2 years ago, we both like were kind of like talking as we were doing Lyft and Uber. Like the nights we did them, like we would call each other on the phone, like, yeah, man, this area is hot. This, that, and the third. Kind of just help each other out. And then I remember we did Lyft Halloween night and made like a killing. And so I was like, you know what? I think this is going to work. That was kind of like the night when I saw how much I made on my own. I was like, you know what? I think this is going to work. And me and my wife had kind of previously prayed and talked about it and talked through it. And it was just kind of like, yeah, man, it's just kind of time to do this. So that's pretty much the beginning of how everything happened. I wanted to save money up. I wanted to pay off debt. I wanted to do all those great things creatives do. I wanted to make that infamous Facebook status and say, hey, y'all, I saved up all this money. I quit my job today. It's like, nah, my job quit me. You know what I'm saying? They laid me off. And man, it was a pride killer, man. It was very humbling. And yeah, man. So I mean, that's like the story.
Yeah, man. So definitely not the glamorous story. It's not like I finally quit my job today.
Nah.
So let's talk for a second about just the hardest parts of that journey. And you kind of alluded to some of the darker moments that you've had, but going from consistent revenue to not having that consistent revenue, or at least not being able to depend on one thing for the majority of your income. Could you talk about like the hardest parts of that journey and navigating through that?
Yeah. So like, I will say, like, just as a disclaimer, I don't know a lot. Obviously, I've only been doing this for 2 years, but I have learned a lot. So what I'm saying is not like an end all be all. You know what I'm saying? I can only share my experience and give like the stuff that counts. You know what I'm saying? That really you can take to the bank. You know what I mean?
Right.
For what I was doing, like I was doing my own music. I was producing and I was doing video. And I was really good, or I am really good, at all, like great even, at all three. And so, man, like the first year was a lot of shooting in the dark, if I'm honest. And that's just because I was just kind of going with what I already had. And so there wasn't like a consistent like influx of money. Well, in the beginning, I was getting a lot, obviously, because, and I'm pretty sure you know this, not a lot of people, I shouldn't say obviously, but like obviously I was getting enough money because I was able to, in 2017, take me and my wife went to Puerto Rico for our anniversary. So like, I was doing the production stuff. I was doing my music, doing the gigs or whatever. But it was a lot of shooting in the dark behind the scenes because I was trying to get video to work, but video wasn't really like, I wasn't passionate about it. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Right.
I would say that's one of the first things you need to know as an artist, as a creative. What are you passionate about? And when I say passionate, like, what can you do, or what, like, as a creative, you wouldn't mind doing for free? Like, not getting paid for it. You know what I'm saying? Despite how good you are, like, what could you offer somebody freely and say, oh man, I'll do it? Like, for example, like, I'm passionate about my music, like, out of all the skill sets I have. And if, of course, I don't do it for free, but if, like, say, like, a homie promoter of mine hits me up and says, like, yo, like, I got this event, blah, 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 like, I can only pay, like, you know what I'm saying? My budget is small, but I really think you would fit good. It's going to be X amount of people there, blah, blah, blah. Like, yo, can you do it for me? I'm like, yeah, I got you. Like, either for the low or for nothing. You know what I'm saying? Because I'm just so passionate about my music and the message behind my music. You know what I'm saying? Over the quality is great, but like, more than anything, it's the message. And so you got to know what you're passionate about. I wasn't passionate about video. Like,
Right.
and I found that out because I would get certain jobs that would pay me well, and then, like, I'll say it like this, because I don't want to seem like I don't I'm not the bitter, like, person about it, but, like, I would work with certain people, and they wouldn't be willing to pay me my worth, and they would try to cut corners on prices and even agreements, you know what I'm saying? And I would try to give, like, wiggle room, you know what I'm saying, on stuff. And I'll say this, man, I'll be very candid about this. Most of the time it was from our people. I'm gonna just say it.
Yeah.
Like, it was from black folk, man. And so, like, hey, brother, like, yo, man, like, we in this together. Like, we trying to do this together, me and you. And I'm just like, yeah, I hear that, bruh. But you got a regular 9-to-5 job, and a great one at that. I don't. I have to feed my family. You know what I'm saying? And even though it's just me and my wife, Sally may still be knocking at my door,
Of course.
and you know what I'm saying?
Faithfully.
So, yeah. And so it's just like, yo, man, like, I hear you and I feel you, but I need to get paid. And it was frustrating. And so, and then even when I would go to edit this stuff, I'm just like, man, like, it's cool, but I'm not enjoying this.
Bruh,
You
talk
know?
about it.
I'm not enjoying this. And I would tell my wife, like, I did not decide to go full time to go back to doing something I don't enjoy.
Right.
When I was working at my last job doing the customer service, like, I was getting paid good. You know what I'm saying? I got PTO. I would take off whenever I wanted to, and I had PTO, all that stuff.
Right.
And it was cool, but even that job in itself, like, dealing with people on the phone all day, like, with different attitudes and all that stuff was stressful, man. You know what I mean?
Definitely.
So it was good. I got paid what I felt like I was worth at that job. No, I'm sorry. Let me take that back. I wasn't getting paid what I was worth at that job because I have my master's, but I was getting paid well for a customer service job. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But still, it wasn't something I enjoyed. So, what ended up happening was, like, I had, like, one more pleasant video job left, and that was in 2017, last year. And I told my wife, I was like, I'm done. Like, if you want to, cause she does photography. I was like, you're passionate about photography. And I actually put the camera in her hand to do photography. Like, I saw that she was good at it. She had an eye for it. I was like, yo, I bought her a camera. I'm like, yo, just go for it. You know what I'm saying? So she still does photography. I don't do video anymore, man. Like we actually, it's our company. We rebranded it. Our company, new logo, like new this, new that, and I was just like, I'm not feeling this.
Right.
like I'm not thrilled about this like I used
Yeah.
to be, and so that kind of just fell off. And then the production thing I enjoy doing it, more so. Like I will not say it's a good balance between how much I enjoy doing it for myself and for other artists. But that kind of slowed down a little bit too. And so, there would be, as all creatives know, these gaps in between, especially because I was shooting in the dark. It was just like, hit and miss. It was just kind of like, all right, I got this job coming up. Everything was good, for a certain amount of time, but then, we had way more than enough money. We went to Puerto Rico, we came back, all that stuff like that. But then you get hit with a ton of bills, and then you gotta, car registration, get your car inspection, tire goes flat, do this, you know what I'm saying? Like,
Man.
so then that extra money you had, it kind of goes down, and it makes you regret, should I have went to Puerto Rico? Like, and it's like, nah, like you got to enjoy yourself. And
Right.
and that was the first time in a long time, me and my wife, I wouldn't say a long time, but it was the first time in a while me and my wife got a chance to really go and just enjoy ourselves. And so we earned that, you know what I'm
Right.
saying? But
Right.
still, you come back and you're just like, I think one of the biggest things was learning, because I had essentially 2 or 3 jobs when I was working on a 9 to 5, and one of them I could always bank on, is learning how to budget. That's like one of the biggest things I've learned being a creative, is just
Right.
learning how to budget, because you just don't have the money to just be shooting out and doing whatever with. You know what I'm saying? Even when you get a lot, unless you have something that is consistent that you can count on all the time, you got to learn how to budget, man. So I would say, just to begin with, number one, do what you're passionate about. Because if not, like, you're going to be miserable, just like you were working a 9 to 5 job.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? If you decide to do this full time, do what you're passionate about. And then number two, like learn how to budget, man, because that is really important when you look at the scheme of, especially because I do multiple things. So like, I'm an artist, so I have to make sure that I have enough money for, getting graphic design done. I don't mix and master my own stuff, but like I have to make sure my own recording. So I gotta, make sure I have a good mic, make sure I got the right plugins. I'm doing beat, I'm producing, I'm beat making. So it's like, having the newest, the latest sounds,
Right.
That stuff is important. You know what I'm saying? So, and just kind of reinvesting, having money to take care of yourself, like as far as like having the money to take care of home, pay bills, and all that stuff while reinvesting. So it's just like budgeting is so important, man.
Right.
I can't stress that enough. So yeah, I would say definitely those two things are very important. And then I would say number 3, like having a long game plan.
Right.
Where do you want to see yourself, like as a creative, in the next 2 to 3 years? Like, what are you doing? What is your plan? You know what I'm saying? Like, what's your plan? And of course, you can't see 2 to 3 years ahead of time, but like kind of outline that out. But you can plan something for a year out and say, I'm going to consistently do this.
Right.
Boom, 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 boom. Consistently. But have a long game plan, man. Throughout what you're doing to keep that consistent revenue coming in, and keep your creativity going, and working with other creatives. Like what I'm saying, like what does your strategy look like? So
Right.
if I could nutshell those three things, then yeah, like I know that was a lot, but
Oh, nah, it's all good, man.
yeah.
And I'm glad you touched on doing what you're passionate about. That was something for me as a creative I didn't realize. I'm thinking, okay, because it's creative, it's going to be fulfilling, right? Like, because, I do photography, some video work and stuff like that as well. And when you and I first met, I had just been laid off. And so I was like, all right, I'll just do photography until I can get like the artist consulting and stuff really popping. What I did not plan for was not enjoying photography. Because it's like, I enjoy taking photos, right? But to run a photography business is a whole different beast, because you're taking pictures of like people's kids. And so it's like the work you're doing isn't fulfilling you creatively. And then on top of that, you're dealing with all those downfalls, like you said. People are trying to undercut you. I'm looking on Instagram, and it's like 55 college students doing mini sessions for $30. And I'm like, I can't compete with these $30 sessions.
Yeah.
Like, and so it was like
well, if you're passionate about it, you'll find a way. Like, cause I'll just say this too, just to add on to, I'm sorry, cause I just want to throw this in there. So like I first started doing videos with my guy. His name is Patrick too. From Torch House. I know you've probably seen his work floating around.
Yep.
And when I saw everything, like when we shot the music video for The Ride, it was like bitter cold outside, like dumb cold, and like so cold that it was hurting. Like if you didn't have, if your skin was out, like any part of your skin was out, like it was a sharp cold, like cutting. And so the fact that he had all the equipment, he had a homie with him, the drone, we were doing stuff over, like they were passionate about that. Right. And I told him, I said, bro, like, I'm so glad you came out here with the quality of video that you're doing, because you took a burden off my shoulders. And he was like, oh yeah, man, I'm always looking to work with artists. And I was like, nah, you don't understand what I'm saying. I used to do video. So when I saw your quality of work and saw you just killing the game, it made it so easy for me to back off.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Cause
yeah, man.
Go ahead. No, go ahead. What was you about to say?
No, I was going to say that passion is the key, because it's like, you're going to deal with downsides in every creative endeavor, in any endeavor, period. Right. But that passion is what's going to keep you going through that to the other side. Right. Like I'll shoot a wedding and I'm like, dang, I got like 2,000 pictures I took this weekend that I got to go through. And then I'll notice like halfway through a session, I'm like, this is not what I'm not down for this. Right. But there are other people, there are people who obsess over every photo, over every filter, over like each curve, like and they love it. They could sit in a room and edit photos for days at a time. And like, and you can see it. You can see it in the quality of their work. You can see it everywhere, right? Like me as not being as passionate about photography, I felt like that showed too. Like I felt like my photos weren't looking like the ones that I would see other places. I felt like my clients weren't like coming back like I wanted them to. So it was like, okay, and all of this you could trace back to that passion factor. Like, okay, let's be real with yourself. You're not putting forth the effort because you don't care, not because you can't do it. So especially if this is your main source of income, whether it's music, whether it's film, whatever you're doing, you have to be passionate about it, because at one point it's gonna dry up. Like the whole, oh well, I'm making this amount of money from doing it, that's only gonna carry you for so long.
Yep.
Like somebody could offer me $5,000 right now for a certain corporate gig to work with certain people that I've worked with in the past, and I'd be like, nah, I'm good.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, man. It's crazy you said that, because like one thing I was learning is crazy. Like I picked certain things up doing like I had for a short amount of time when I was doing it, I had a videographer mentor. And one thing that he told me that I keep for just in general as an entrepreneur, as a creative, doing it full time, he told me all money isn't good money. And I was like, like, it's so true. Like, like you just said, like if you got offered somebody was like, yo, Pat, like, man, I'll pay you to do video. Like I had somebody offer to pay me to do video, and it was a nice amount of money. And I was just like, nah, man. I was like, I appreciate it, but I was like, nah, I can't do it.
Right.
And I was like, I'll help. Like you could pay me to like help storyboard. Like I'll storyboard it for you. Like, I'll write, like, and that's something that I want to get into. But like, I was like, I'll write the treatment and storyboard it and all that, and I'll give you my fee for that. But I said, I said, I'll help direct it. I said, but like filming and editing, I'm like, I don't do that anymore.
Right.
So yeah. And I mean, it was money worth my time. And I said no, because it's just like, nah.
Right.
And I don't think some people will understand that. They'll probably hear this and be like, what, man, I'll take that. Like, nah.
Right. They'll learn pretty quick, because I was like that too. Like, it's easy to just see dollar signs, especially when you got a family at home that's depending on those dollars. Right. But again, the dollars aren't going to carry you through all the long nights it takes to follow through.
Yeah. And you got to have a family. If you have a family at home, you got to have a family that understands that. Because if you don't have a family that they'll be like, yo, why didn't you take that money? And then there'll be friction there. You know what I'm saying? So you have a family back home, or if you have somebody you're taking care of, they have to understand the concept of all money isn't good money, Right. And I really thank God for my wife, who understood that, you know what I'm saying, understands that all money isn't good money. So yeah, like, yeah, man, like that's so true, man. That's
Right.
so true.
So I'm gonna transition to another point. When you and I talked last year, we did an interview for my blog at the time. The interview ended up getting canned. I was going through some family emergencies, and by the time I came out of that situation, I was like, all right, this interview is just old. I'm just gonna leave it in the archives. But I remember coming away from that conversation frustrated. And I didn't tell you this, but I remember when we were talking, I was like, okay, this guy clearly has business savvy. Like, he's clearly making moves that other artists don't make. And
Really?
I was asking you questions about, like, trying to get into your head about business. And I was like, why does this dude answer everything in art terms? Like, and I thought you were being fake. I was like, why is he acting like that, right? After, becoming more familiar with you and getting to know you a little bit more over this last year, I realized that's just you. Like, that's just how you think.
Yeah.
And so I feel like we talk about this divide between art and commerce a lot, but it seems like your artistic mind lends itself well to business. What do you think about your thought process, or what do you think makes that work so well with each other for you?
So what do you mean, like in terms of, like, give me an example?
So, like, for example, your branding, or like different moves you might make with, let's say, like, we'll talk about the sound design later, but like with Pelham Jr., like, I feel like the way you present yourself is very strong from a brand standpoint. Like you don't take every opportunity that's presented to you, or at least
Right.
from what I can tell, right?
Mm-hmm.
You're very story driven. Like I remember we went to you did the listening session, and something I took note of was you were talking to the other people that were interviewing you, like, look, this is what we're going to talk about, da 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 da. So you're very conscious of your story and things like
Yeah.
that, and all of those things lend itself well to, me as a marketer. I noticed that, like, okay, he's really understanding what it is to be a brand and to be a business. But again, all of that you speak of, not from like these certain things are going to do better numbers wise. It's all seems like
Right.
it's from a genuine place of like, this is just where my art is right now. But what do you
Yeah.
feel that your approach, why do you think your approach lends itself so well to the branding and the business side of things?
Well, I would say two reasons. It's funny you bring this up. And he said I was frustrated with this. That's because number one, if you would have asked me, like, bro, if I'm 100% honest, like, I didn't go to school. Number one, I didn't go to school for business. Like, I've learned a lot from just watching closely, you know. It's been trial and error for me. Also, number two, the second biggest reason is because I have friends that are just that darn good at it. And like, I have multiple friends, and that's why, like, I'm blessed, man, because like I'm still learning a lot about music business, still learning a lot about just, like, art business, if you will. But I have friends that just they just know what they're doing, and so I learned a lot from them. I remember, man, I'll share this, Jim, man. I remember just from a branding sense, because man, like, man, when it comes to branding, like, just visually what looks good to me, and like, there is room. I will say this, man, there is room for subjective taste in art, like, for sure. But to me, there is a line that you have to draw when it comes to objective, when it comes to, like, quality.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Like, there is such thing as quality in art. It just all can't be subjective, like, all of it. Nah, man. Like, so you trying to tell me if it's all subjective, that if you brought, like, some piss poor recording, mixing and mastering, or just, like, the rapping that you were doing, even, like, I'll say this too, just to make a point, like, some people may not like the Migos, but the Migos, they can rap extremely well. And a lot of people won't, like, well, a lot of people won't say that, you know what I'm saying? Like, they rap extremely well. That's what I respect about them. I like listening to some of the things that they do. But it's one thing, like, they rap extremely well. You know what I'm saying? Like, there's just certain qualities that I can point out that I can see why they're signed. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Versus, or why they're successful, versus some random dude from down the street who records in his room on his microphone, which has, some stuff like that has went viral, but, like, you can't bring certain things to an A&R or somebody who's professional and it's just poor in quality, or it's just not good.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? And, like, that, it's just like, nah, man, or the stuff that pops, like, there's something about it that has a good quality that you can point out, even if it's not your cup of tea. You know what I'm saying? So I say that to say, like, when it comes to branding in art, like, there's an art to the branding that has to be quality. And so you follow me on IG, you follow me on Twitter. Like, I'm very conscious about what I'm tweeting, how I'm tweeting, and what I'm posting, how I'm posting it. even down to like the visual. A lot of people have been really digging the stuff that I've been doing with the every month releases. For summer 18, part A, part B, and this month for fall is coming out, part A is coming out, and people have really been enjoying like the visual experience. That's my vision. It's very planned. It's very strategic. It's a lot of thought went into that. A lot of my personality went into it. And so I have to thank this guy that I know named Blake Burnett, to my point, who he's a graphic designer by trade. He is that dude, like, he's so sharp when it comes to branding. He took me to the mall one day. Here's the gym. He took me to the mall one day, and cause like we were doing some stuff together and I was suggesting some fonts and he was just like, nah. He was like, nah, that's not good. And I'm just like, what, man? This joint is dope. He was like, nah, bro. Like, nah. He was like, let's go to the mall real quick. So he took me to the mall and we went to the mall, and dude, when I tell you he changed my visual experience by pointing out different stores and showing me how their fonts, even down to the inside of the store and how it was structured, the look and everything, how like branding is so like in depth and so important. Like he said, like, all right, man, all right, I want you to look at let's look at what was it, Gap, like Baby Gap. He was like, look at the font, real playful, kind of playful, whatever. Look at this, look at that, look inside the store, look at the clothes, look how inside is structured and all that stuff. I was like, okay, cool. Then he was like, all right, now look at Apple. What do you notice? Look at the logo. Like, what do you notice? Look at the furniture inside of the store, the spacing, the sleekness. What do you notice? And I'm just like, oh shoot. Like, how you brand yourself is so important. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, because you're essentially, when you put yourself out there, your brand, you're essentially giving a quick, like, synopsis almost. Like, of course, in life, you don't judge a book by its cover. You know what I'm saying? But in business, a lot of the times, you get judged by your cover.
Right. And I
if
think
they look at, go ahead.
Oh, yeah. I think what people don't understand about the branding process is that like when you say branding, you think of like logos and like the visual, but branding is deep. Like, branding is at your core and it shines through everything. That's why you go into an Apple store and everything is consistent. Like, it's all simplistic. It's all clean. It's all like striking, right? But it's not because they said, oh, we want to look this way. Like, when you listen to their keynotes, that's their approach to everything.
Yes. Yep.
Like, and so it's like branding starts not with, oh, what is this going to look like after we've got it all done? It starts from the drawing board. From
the beginning. Yeah. Yeah. Because it really defines, like, it defines what you're going to look like from starting point to beyond, like what people can expect from you. And so even down to the font you choose, it's going to grab certain people's attention. And so, of course, you want to brand yourself in the way you like what's you. You don't want to like fake, you know what I'm saying? Like, you don't want to just put what you think everybody else will thinks looks good, but you definitely want to be you, but you want to make it the best presentation of you, the cleanest presentation of you. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
The most highlighted, I guess, shiny parts of you, if you will, like you at your 100%, and so like, and put that into the brand, the visual experience, you know, the colors. I mean, it's so deep, man. Like, I could talk about this for a while, and I don't want to give so much away,
Right.
but
It's all good.
I want to, I want to say, like, yo, like, branding is important. So, like, those are the two things, like, I've learned trial and error, and a lot of it is, you know, my friends, man, you know, just having good people around me that know business, that know, like, even down to, you mentioned about the moves that I make. Excuse me, like, the moves that I make as an artist, like, my homie Slums, man, he was my DJ for a few years, and, like, he taught me a lot about, like, you know, doing shows, getting shows, like, my performance, you know, how I can tweak my performance, how I can make it better, you know, stuff like that. Like, he was always pushing me to be a better artist, like, behind the booth and on stage.
Right.
Excuse me. And so, yeah, like, he definitely pushed me to be better. And so, like, even now, like, a lot of the stuff that he taught me, like, I've gotten to a point now where it's just like I'm very picky about the shows that I do. I've learned, so a combination of just my, you know, learning from my friends and trial and error, like, the shows that you do as an artist, as a performing artist, the people who you open up for, your own shows that you put together, like, that's your resume. You have to treat it like a resume. So, like, for example, I'll throw this gem out there, like just from personal research, like learning myself, like, if you wanted to say you're like in another alternate version, another alternate version of the universe, another alternate universe, you were trying to work in the corporate world, doing electronics, right? Like, say, like phones or something, right? And let's say on your resume, you worked at T-Mobile for a few years, right? And then you left T-Mobile as just like a regular retail, like, floor person or whatever the case is. Like, then you worked at Verizon for like 3 years, you know what I'm saying, as a manager. And then, like, you know, then you started working at, like, for a year, you worked at Food Lion. And then you're going to work at, like, Apple or something as, like, the store manager. You're trying to get interviewed as a store manager.
Right.
Or working at Apple, like, working, like, on phones and all that stuff like that. And they're looking at your resume and they're like, yo, like, so, okay, you worked T-Mobile, you did Verizon, you did this store, and then Food Lion, like, what was that about?
Right.
You know what I'm saying? And so, like, you have to treat your performances, show stuff, like a resume, because it's like you can't look at my resume and see Odyssey, No Name, I don't know, and these are people I perform for. So Odyssey, or open up for Odyssey, No Name, Cooley High, somebody random like Chance, and then you see Future.
Right.
And then and then, like, you know what I'm saying? It's like, okay, like, I'm trying to build a resume, like, you know what I'm saying? Like, to build around my brand, to surround myself with artists that, not to say I'm not going to limit to who I will work with, but so when I do get that call from certain festivals, or they do hit me up, they'll see already, like, what my resume is. You know what I'm saying? They'll know, like, for example, I can tell when I did Hopscotch last year, I can tell they were watching, because one of the first things they said when they hit me up was, we saw that you opened up for Odyssey. So they were watching, and so that's one of the main reasons why they put me on the stage with Odyssey, No Name, and G Yamazawa was there. That was like, man, that bill was crazy. That was like,
Word.
I would say, like, hip hop wise, to me, that was the best bill that I've seen them put together, and like the best hip hop like show for Hopscotch that week was that bill.
Yeah, that's a dope show.
Yeah, man, it was super dope. And so, but I could tell they were watching, you know what I'm saying? So they knew, and that worked to my benefit, because had I been doing some shows for a bunch of other people and didn't open up for Odyssey, and they didn't hear my music and they didn't see my brand and what I was doing, they would just kind of just put me somewhere or anywhere. But the fact that, you know what I'm saying? But the fact, to my point, the fact that they saw, like, okay, like you did a show, this is Odyssey. Oh, okay, well, yeah, like, and we heard the Odyssey show was crazy, so we gonna go ahead and put them on this one. So that worked to my advantage.
Right.
So it like branding yourself as an artist. I really believe that good branding will open up great doors for business, like quality in music, quality in mixing and mastering, like the whole thing as a music artist, like in the production and the all that stuff, like what it sounds like, what it feels like.
Right.
Companies look at that stuff. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, man.
Yeah. I mean, everything exists as a part of a larger story, right? And you never want to box yourself in as an artist. But every good movie has logical plot points. It's like, you know, the beginning, middle, there's going to be a climax, you know, there's rising action, the climax, falling action, right? And then the conclusion. You know, the viewer naturally can tell, excuse me, the viewer can naturally tell what's coming next, even though they may not know. They can tell what's going to happen in the movie, but they don't know what's happening in the movie, if that makes sense, right? Like if I'm watching, if I'm watching the Justice League, I know that all the superheroes are going to make it out, but I have no idea how. And that's the joy of watching the movie, right? And so I say all that to say, you know, as an artist, your brand, you want to be leading people to the next step, right? Even if you don't know what the next step is, you know, okay, this is an important part of the story because it tells this. And it's easy to see, like if you're planning stuff out, like you said, you can plan like a year in advance and say, I want to be here. And you can break that down to, okay, well, if I want to be here in a year, then 3 months from now, I need to be in this spot. 6 months, I need to be this spot, and so on. And if you know all of that, then you can lead, you can start to pursue opportunities that lead and tell that bigger story. So then you can say, hey, I went from being laid off to producing music full time to opening for Odyssey, and now I'm doing festivals. Like all those seem like gradual steps that make sense. So,
and let me add this too. Let me add to your point, and I wanted to say this earlier, but I think it's a good point to put in right here. I've also learned that every year isn't going to look the same, and it will continue to grow. Excuse me, it will continue to grow, but every year won't look the same success wise. When I say look the same, like, so for example, just for myself, 2016 was when I got laid off, was building, kind of rebranding, rebuilding, refining what I was doing. I put a lot of work into building my performance and my show.
right.
I remember starting my first practice with my now band, and I mean, we had a show. It was gonna be a small show. It was at Neptune's. With a couple of artists in the area, and like I was just like, no matter what, like it was gonna be the first performance with them. So I was just like, no matter, like I'm all about rehearsal, like practice. Like it doesn't make perfect, it makes better. And so like, you know, we rehearsed like 2 or 3 times a month for about 3 months. I want to say. We practiced because we had to learn all the material that I was doing, like practice, new set, everything. And we just kept practicing. And we had our first show like late 2016 as a band. Killed it. All the right people were there. It was a small it was like, it wasn't a huge turnout, it was a small turnout, but all the right people were there. And then 2017 was like, in my eyes, and I have to I have to kind of, I guess in a sense, kind of like reframe what, how I look at it, because 2017 in the beginning, to my eyes, was a crazy year for me. Like it was, we had so what was it? Coolie High in the beginning, at the top of 2017. I had a couple of like just, Jay Gunn, that was a big show. I had Hopscotch. I was on the, in the paper, in the Raleigh paper. I was on the front of the Indie Weekly. I was on NPR. I opened up for Odyssey. We did Hopscotch. I think I said that already. And like, it was just so many great things happening for me as an artist. You know what I'm saying? And it, a lot of great like shows and all that opportunity, like all that stuff. It was just really, really good. This year, I did my first headlining show, oversold it out, which was really good. Of course, I didn't just sell out the show, like I oversold it out. And then like, so literally like, and these are the things like you have to look back at too when you're progressing as an artist, because you'll be so tempted to look at somebody else's timeline, and you can get so like ungrateful about what you've accomplished. Like you got to take a minute to pat yourself on the back. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
But anyway, I did my first headlining show earlier this year, for the second Black and Mild installment. We oversold the show. So like, you do a show, you put your own show together. Of course, there are people there who are just coincidentally there, bar, just to drink and everything, have a good time.
Right.
And then like some of those people left, and there were people waiting. Like my show hadn't even started and it was sold out, and people were getting there and getting turned away because they were trying to get to my show. Yeah. And then, like they were getting turned away, and then some people actually waited for people to leave, like just the oncoming people, the oncoming traffic. They were waiting for people to leave my show who were just there to drink, so that they could get into my show just to pay to get in.
Wow.
So yeah, man, that's stuff I have to remember from time to time. Like, so we oversold the show, but like, so we sold it out, and then like over more than half of the capacity again, for people who came back, like who waited around to see me.
That's dope.
So that was really dope. So we did that. I opened up for Black Milk this year, which is really dope. Man, it's been a lot of behind the scenes stuff. So the stuff with my music, you know what I'm saying? Like,
right.
But for me, it was just like, this year I was thinking at one point, man, like, this year ain't as popping as it was last year. That's how I kind of felt a little bit. You know what I'm saying? Like, this year it's not as popping as it was last year, but it is, because, so I was talking to my homie Odyssey, and I'm grateful to have a relationship. I'm grateful to have a relationship with him. He was doing the show at Motorco, and we were talking, and I was telling him about my progress. That's what it was. And like, he said, because I told him 2017 was crazy, but this year seems to be, he was like, nah, man, like just from everything you're telling me that you're doing, especially with you building your sound design, he was like, a lot of great stuff sometimes happens behind the scenes. So while you may have not put out an album or put out like whatever, it sounds like the progressions that you've made behind the scenes have been just as successful as the stuff that you did last year in the forefront.
Right.
And I was just like, you're right. And I knew that, but I didn't know how to like express it. You know what I'm saying? And so everything that I've been doing behind the scenes with my music, like, and my sound design, my production has been just as successful as stuff like last year that everybody could see. So there's been a lot of stuff people have not seen, like that I've done behind the scenes that has just, you know what I'm saying? So like, that's another thing you can't weigh, because the forefront stuff is just, it's not the glamour, but it's just kind of like the stuff that you get applauded for a lot.
Right.
The behind the scenes stuff, just because a lot of people aren't applauding for it, it doesn't mean that it's not just as good.
Right. Yeah, like,
you know,
everybody wants the thing, you know, that they can, that their mom can hang up on the fridge, so to speak. Right. But it's
exactly.
Like I remember when I was when I first started getting into like music business, I told my mom about it and she was like, "Okay, that's nice. Go find a way to make you some money though." And when I started interning with Ninth Wonder, I let her know who he was. And then like I'm at church and she's telling one of her friends like, "Oh yeah, he's working with Ninth Wonder. He worked with Jay-Z and da 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 da." Like, but it's like, so you get caught up in what other people deem successful, right?
Right.
But it's like it's not about that. It's about what's going to progress you, right? What's really going to help you move forward. And I think Odyssey is the perfect example of that, because I know he's seen a lot of success in music licensing.
Yeah, man.
Where it's like, unless you're watching the TV shows his music is in, you have no idea. And it's like, what happened to Odyssey? Where's he been at, right? Until he releases an album and goes on tour. But it's like, there are years where Odyssey is completely quiet, making more money than he made the year before.
Right, exactly. Yep. And and it's funny you say that. We talk about that. He shares that, you know, and it is, you know, like I said, I'm grateful to have that relationship, you know, where he can just kind of like, I could pick his brain and he'll, you know, just share whatever. So it's been really dope. So yeah, exactly, man. I just wanted to throw that in there because, you know, you were making a point to say just about just like success and the evolution and the growth and all that stuff like that. So yeah.
Definitely. So I know we got to come to a close, but I do want to talk about Pelham Jr. and, you know, just kind of how it got started and where it's going right now.
Okay. Well, yeah, I'll make it quick. That was kind of the things that, like I said earlier, that kind of just happened. I wouldn't say by accident. It was just kind of like one of those things like, yo, let's try this. Excuse me. So, my homie JP, he's one of the producers on my small production team that you know help build my singles, albums, all that, my projects and all that stuff. He did a lot of work on my 2016 album, Learning to Live in the Day. Justin Pelham, that's his name. We call him JP. And so yeah, so like he's been a longtime friend, and you know, we just got great chemistry together. And I was just like, yo, man, we should try, like, you know, I know it's kind of like a quote unquote like popular thing or whatever, but like I was like, I think we can be really good at just making samples, you know, for other producers or whatever. So he was like, yeah, man, like it's something I've always wanted to try. Excuse me. And he was like, so you know how you talk with a friend and like y'all say y'all gonna do something, but y'all keep saying y'all gonna do it, but it never gets done.
Right.
So he was like, yeah, man, you know, like, yeah, we should try. Like, I was like, yeah, cool. And then like a month goes by and like, yeah, man, you know that idea we talked about? So like, yeah, let's do it. And then finally we was like, all right, man, let's actually do this thing. So we sat down And of course, I don't know if you know all of the history, but in a nutshell, so when it comes to artists and producers, they sometimes struggle with getting music cleared,
Right.
like sampling from older artists, because either the older artist will say no, or the older artist will want a certain amount of money that maybe the artist at the time can't afford, or
Right.
whatever. You know what I'm
Right.
saying? So, and then some people who are really good at it, and some people who are, whatever with it, like getting that stuff clear. So anyway, like over the past 5 years, like there's been this trend, if you will, or this kind of new thing that has blossomed, where producers are making original samples to give artists or producers no clearance hassle at all. So, and one
Right.
of the first ones to do it, really, one of the first ones to do it, when I think about it, I would want to say it's Adrian Young
Yep.
before Frank Dukes.
Yep.
Because a lot of people say Frank Dukes, and while at first I would agree with that, but I was like, nah, Adrian has been doing it before Frank.
Yep.
Because Adrian has been he said he makes music for other people to sample.
Right.
So it was Adrian Young, then it was Frank Dukes, of course. Frank Dukes was, I guess, a little bit more popular because of his sound and who was using. So one of the most, I guess the breakout sample or breakout like single that kind of put Frank Dukes on the map was Drake's 0 to 100. And so, like, if you go back and you look that up, like 0 to 100 sample Frank Dukes, you type that in YouTube, you'll find the original sample by Frank Dukes or whatever. And it's literally like, it's a long composition. It changes, it evolves, like it's super dope. But literally the producer, I think it was Boy Wonder who did that one. If I'm correct, if I'm wrong, whatever, sue me. But he literally took like a small snippet of like a loop in the beginning,
Yep.
and just used it. Yeah. So I was just like, that's crazy. So, but anyway, so I was telling him like, yo, man, like I think we can do it. Let's give it a shot. So we put like a first for all, like for anybody listening who knows the first official Pelham Jr. sample, like it was called the Evening Sun sample pack.
Yep.
And like we put that out. It did cool. It wasn't like crazy.
Right.
Like, but we did what we could, and a lot of people appreciated it. You know what I'm saying? Like a lot of people thought it was dope. But I hollered at my man Wes Pendleton, and you know what I'm saying, he was doing Soul Surplus at the time, which was
Right.
was doing well. And we hopped on board with them because they were actually having vendors on their site at the time, and we made a name for ourselves there. And so they ended up going a different, way with their business, which, me and Wes are still super close we're super cool today. Like we talk all the time. But they just went a different way with their business. It's like, hey, we're going to hand you guys over to pretty much who a drum or sample distributor or sound distributor, the biggest one I would say as far as just hip hop sound is concerned, which is the Drum Broker.
Right.
So, we started working with the Drum Broker, man, and we did Neo Gotham Volume 1 and 2 through Soul Surplus, and then they handed us over, and we just went from there. Mellow Hues Volume 1 and 2. That was probably like the first like popular one we released that a lot of people loved. But yeah, we're still growing. It's still doing great. We have a super dope team. It's me, JP, my hobie Eons D. He used to go by Eons D, but he goes by Eons now. My dude Mark, and who else? Let me not forget King Thelonious Martin,
Yeah.
who a lot of people may be familiar with him. And Ruben Rodriguez, He does all of our graphic design, and Ryan Little, he's the guy who's like the spokesman for Pelham Jr. He does like our reviews, our YouTube reviews or whatever.
Gotcha.
For each, he demos like it's like a recorded longer version of a demo. So yeah, man. The team is strong, man. It's like it's been a really dope journey. We're still growing. We've had some like really dope producers who are popular on Instagram hit us up. One being Beats by Jay Black. He hit us up and he just showed mad love, and he's been using a lot of our stuff and tagging us in it. So I would say when it comes to sustaining myself as an artist, like that definitely has helped out as well. It's been really great to just do all my shooting in the dark or whatever, figuring things out, and now I've very much so compartmentalized what I do as an artist. And so now I do this, I do that, because I could do a lot of things very well. I could do a lot of things great, but like I would say like the music production and the sound design is what helps, feed me, take care of my fam. And so, but yeah, like the sound design thing has been really dope. It's helped make us better as producers. And it's helped our ears. It's been a dope journey, man. It's been fun.
That's what's up.
So yeah, we have some other things in the future that we want to do. Like we I'll throw this in there too. We did some scoring for the Hype premiere, the Hype web series that Holland put together. And so that was really dope. 2 of my songs got placed, and then 2 Pelham Jr. scores got placed on the web series. I counted as 4 because I told JP, like, you've been a huge influence on my music. Right. So like we just gonna say it's 4, you know what I'm saying, for the both of us. And so we're trying, that's where our long term is at. That's where we want to go. We want to go into scoring. We want to go into getting placements on, movies, TV series, web series, commercials, whatever. Like that's the direction we're going into, doing actual production for certain artists.
Yeah.
But the sound design thing is definitely right now, that's where we're in right now, the phase 1. So
and that would be such a natural progression, just because the same way producers pick stuff off of a sample pack, or like you said, there's this whole long composition, and boy wanted to pick like this small snippet of a loop. But that's the same way these music supervisors will pick out cues for a TV show.
Yep.
So that'd be such a great transition. That makes so much sense for you guys.
Yeah, man.
Well, look, man, this has been an amazing conversation. I feel like we could go another hour, but
I know, right?
You know what I'm saying? It is always like that when we talk, so we got to do this more often. But I appreciate you, coming onto the show, giving our listeners such an in-depth look at, how you think and how you approach your business as well as your creativity.
Yeah, man. No problem.
Yeah. So tell the people where they can find you if they're interested in staying connected with you.
Yeah. Well, you can find me on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. I am Pat Jr. And make sure you spell Junior out. So it's IAMPATJUNIOR. So that's Twitter, Facebook, IG, and my website, I am Pat Jr. Same way, same format. IamPatJr.com. You can find me there. And as far as the producers are concerned, you can find our right now. You can find our sample. Our packs and compositions on Pelham Jr. So PELHAMAND, and then of course Junior, spell it out. So yeah, Pelham Jr. Twitter, Instagram, and the website pelhamjr.com.
Well, that's what's up, man. Thanks again for doing this interview. And that's going to do it for today's episode of Music Business Dreams. Now, of course, I'm going to link to all of Pat's information in the show notes. But outside of that, I want you guys, or just want to say thank you for listening all the way to the end. Now, if you want to stay connected with us, of course, hit that subscribe button, leave a rating, leave a review so that we know what to do better. Hit us up on social media. I definitely want to hear what you're thinking about the show and what you may need help with in your career. So hit me on social media, all social media at KDMR Music. And of course, join the Indie Club. I'll leave the links for that in the show notes, in the description. I'm super excited about what we've got coming up for you, and I don't want you to miss out. So stay tuned, and I'll see you next week.